forgot. I got to put on my mask, the coronavirus and everything.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. Hi, my name is John Crump. I'm here with Fireside Chats. I'm the director for Gunners of America for Virginia, and I'm a writer for AmmoLand.com. I see Flying Rich out there, Kermit Loves Bacon, and a few other people. We are coming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, DLive, and a bunch of other places that I can't really remember right now. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Connecticut gun laws because we have it bad in Virginia, but nowhere near as bad as in Connecticut. I'm joined by Holly Sullivan, president of CCDL, which is the Connecticut Citizens Defense League.
Hey, John, how are you?
Not bad. Not dead. I don't have corona. I don't think I do
good.
yet. But yeah, it's hanging out with my kids. My kids are off forever. Everything's shut down. No toilet paper anywhere. So
Same here.
I know my brick wall has wrinkles. I gotta fix that. Flying Rich, thank you. Go wreck another plane. Flying Rich wrecks planes a lot. He's the only guy I know that's been in multiple plane crashes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's a pilot, so don't.
Would make sense, right?
Yeah. But yeah, my wall does have it from wrinkles in it, but that is fine. Somebody saying that Urban 2A says that's your president. I guess he's from Connecticut as well.
Yep.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the Connecticut gun laws because no matter what we have here, Connecticut is insane.
Yeah, yes. It sure is.
Yep. NRAM is canceled, by the way. A GOA for our event, we're going to be putting out an announcement tomorrow, official announcement tomorrow. So just look out for that. So Holly, how's Connecticut being president of a gun rights organization and a fairly anti-2A environment?
Yeah, it's a struggle. And, so I took over as president just a couple months ago. Scott Wilson was the president for more than a decade. He did an incredible job taking this from an organization of just a couple people around a table to we are over 36,000 members now. We had over 600 people join just last month. So it is just continually growing. And as much as Connecticut is labeled as really an anti-2A state, the people aren't. And I think that shows in the numbers.
Yeah, one of the things I realized about, there's going to be a little bit of echo, people just kind of have to deal with that. One of the things I realized about Connecticut gun laws is that the AR-15 ban that went into effect, it seems to have a widespread non-compliance. Is that still the case?
Well, I don't want to get any of our members in trouble as far as like who didn't register. So essentially what happened is when Sandy Hook happened, I don't know who followed the rules and who didn't and who got into boating accidents, no idea. But when Sandy Hook happened, there was a requirement that if you were going to have a modern sporting rifle, their new assault rifle, that you had to register it. And then there are no new transfers in the state as far as the traditional modern sporting rifle, if that's what you're asking about.
Yeah.
So we've been a while, and a lot of these gun laws that you guys are seeing in other states, we've had for a long time. We are the very first state to have red flag laws. We got them in the 90s. Yeah, new for us.
Back in 99.
Sorry, I think it was. Yeah, it was back in the 90s after there was a shooting at Connecticut Lottery Center.
Yeah, that's really, really crazy. Tell us about, there's an ammo tax coming out, which I think is insane. It's a 35% ammo tax that will go to anti-gun groups, from what I understand.
That's the plan. So this hasn't been passed yet. The bill is still proposed. Can you hear okay? Is it still echoing?
I can hear.
Okay. So this bill is proposed. It was proposed actually last year. They wanted a 50% tax. They wanted a 50% sales tax on ammunition last year. Now they've backed off to a generous 35%. But it's, look, at the end of the day, CCDL members have been tremendously involved in this fight. They had hearings, or they had public testimony just a little over a week ago in the Finance Committee. And the testimonies from the pro 2A crowd was over 1,000 to like 25 or 35 antis. So, our team really pulled together, and we got a lot of folks involved in that for something that's, going to impact a lot of people. So they want to pass a 35% excise tax on ammunition. We already have sales tax in the state of Connecticut. Plus, obviously, there's the excise tax that's paid at the manufacturer level. So we'd be looking at over 50% tax on ammunition if this were to pass. So to buy ammo in the state of Connecticut, people just won't. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to get it online. We're going to go to other states. We don't have to buy it here. We're going to reload.
Yeah, and what Elizabeth wanted to. I'm gonna mute you when I talk. Don't worry, I got it. One of the things that is interesting is Elizabeth Warren wanted to have a 50% ammunition tax on all ammunition sold, and an excise tax of 35% on all firearms. And she got the idea from Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to get into with Connecticut is, before we get into other stuff, is your red flag laws. It's going to change. In Virginia, we're getting a red flag law, but it requires two officers of the law to say that you need to be red flagged, and the judge has to agree that there's no other way to prevent you from harming yourself or others. In Connecticut, you guys are going to have a red flag law that's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, you put out a video. So talk about that a little bit, or we can watch the video first. Oh, sorry, Holly. I dropped you from the stream. Hold on. Ah, damn it. Holly, you muted yourself, I think.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you play the video? I think it'll answer a lot of questions before we even get into it.
All right. Give me 1 second. I was like, what the hell? I can't unmute her. Give me one. It's like one of those things, right?
It's one of those days.
It definitely is.
Definitely.
I've been dealing with kids, and now I have to teach them how to do stuff. I have to be like their instructor because they're doing telelearning.
Oh.
So it's gonna be interesting. Rich, I cannot unmute her. When someone chooses to mute themselves, I can't do it. All right, let's play this.
Holly Sullivan. I'm the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. In the state of Connecticut, more than 30,000 women have made the deeply personal decision to carry a firearm primarily for the means of self-defense. If you take the time to ask these women why, you might understand her journey. In the state of Connecticut, House Bill 5448 is currently proposed in the General Assembly. HB 5448 specifically removes the mandatory involvement of trusted and trained law enforcement prior to the removal of firearms due to a red flag complaint. In fact, HB 5448 lists the following individuals as possible complainants: a boyfriend, an ex with whom a woman might have a child, in-laws, a former legal guardian, and even step-siblings. These are some of the very people a woman might be looking to defend herself from. Since the passage of temporary restraining orders in the state of Connecticut, 40% of complaints have been dismissed upon hearing the evidence by a judge. Not a single charge of perjury has resulted. HB 5448 creates no mandatory penalties for making a false accusation. In fact, It states that a woman may be left defenseless while waiting for a hearing for up to 2 weeks. Red flag laws can and have been used to disarm women when they're in their most vulnerable state. There comes a point to say, no, that legislation is going too far. There comes a point when legislation is going to put at risk the very people it promises. The point is no longer common sense. It's time to oppose HB 5448.
Don't leave me defenseless.
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 No me dejes en la posición de estar indefensa.
Don't leave me defenseless.
Don't leave me defenseless.
Don't leave me defenseless.
No me dejes en la posición de estar indefensa.
Don't leave me defenseless.
Don't leave me defenseless.
Don't leave me defenseless.
All right. That was a really good video. So what gave you the idea to produce that video?
So I think at the end of the day, it's really hard to get your voice out there to the masses about what's going on in your state. So every state kind of operates a little bit in their own silo, and it's so important that people see what's happening in states like Connecticut, New York, California, New Jersey. Like, look at some of these really difficult states, because what happens here is spreading to the rest of America. And you guys are seeing that in Virginia in the last year. So, you know, this proposed bill was just released last week. We've only had the language for a couple of days, and it's horrifying. So we really have to get the word out about what's going on here.
Yeah. What scares me is the thing where they talk about like stepbrothers and stepsisters can file that. I don't get along with my step siblings at all, and I have no doubt that they would try to do that if that is here. Is that a concern of a lot of people out there that have the same concern I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of, especially in 2020, there's just a lot of family issues, right? People come from all different backgrounds and blended families, and not everybody gets along. But the problem is with this bill, there's no penalty for false accusations. So just as I had said in the video, currently 40% of accusations are unfounded in this state. And if we don't have penalties for these accusations, then what's to stop somebody from red flagging a woman just to disarm her?
Yeah, Kermit Love Bacon, who's also a Connecticut resident, brings up the fact that there's only been one person prosecuted or charged with a crime for a false red flag claim, and that's the woman in Colorado who filed a red flag law as extreme risk protection order against a cop that shot her son. But other than that, I don't believe that there's any other person that is ever been charged with a crime for making up red flag laws. In Connecticut, is there a provision in there that says you can be charged with perjury or anything like that for making up a fake red flag claim?
Well, we have a general perjury law, but none of the red flag laws actually have a mandatory penalty for false accusations. And I think that's a critical component if these bills are going to work.
Yeah. So the bill, if it did have that?
Would I support it?
Yeah, I have that.
No way. There's so many things wrong with this bill, and I'll tell you what. So the proponent of this bill had a press conference the other day, and he stood up there and he said that he was going to make it easier for gun owners to get their guns back. So the way that it works now with the red flag law is if you get it red flagged, 1 year's time, it expires. If the person who is the person you're in conflict with refiles it, then it gets extended again. But they just have to simply go and refile it. Under the proposed law, what they want to do is that he justified it in saying that we'll make it only 6 months. But what's very different in this case is that the gun owner has to prove with a preponderance of evidence that they are no longer a risk at their own expense, prove this to the court. How do you prove yourself to not be a risk, and how un-American is that?
It seems like it pits the whole idea of the Fourth and Fifth Amendment on its head, especially the due process clause, and not guilty until not innocent until proven not whatever until proven guilty, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so they're saying, well, it could happen. In fact, this law doesn't even just cover gun owners. It covers anybody who might have interest in acquiring a gun. So you're literally red flagging somebody for thought at that point. So somebody who has thought about acquiring a gun can be red flagged to be prevented from exercising a constitutional right. And the burden is on them to prove to the court that they're not a risk. How do you do that?
I read somewhere it could take up to $10,000 to hire a lawyer, and in Connecticut, they can't get the money back. It's not like the person has to pay their legal cost. The legal cost is the burden of the person trying to get their guns back.
Yeah, and I think that's something that should be written in there, is that if somebody does make a false complaint, there should be actual penalties, and they should be paying for the expenses of the gun owner, including storage or damage to the firearms in that point in time. But regardless, we don't need this law to begin with. We already have red flag laws. We already have temporary restraining orders. The only thing that this bill does is make it more burdensome on the gun owner to get their property back, and it makes it easier for somebody to file a claim because they're bypassing the police. Under the other laws, the police come in, they do an upfront investigation, and they're able to provide unbiased information to the judge of whether or not there was actually a risk. This law removes the police officers. The law says it could either be cops, or it could just be any of these other people we just listed, including, which wasn't in the video, healthcare professionals. And they're naming healthcare professionals as not just MDs, but they are going to include registered nurses. I mean, it's astronomical, the people who can make a complaint against you.
Yeah, and sorry, I had to mute you. There's a lot of anti-gun people out there who would love to red flag a lot of people, and especially doctors that would love to red flag people. Not saying that all doctors are anti-gun, but there is a lot of doctors out there, like in any profession, if you give them that power and they're anti-gun, will use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely terrifying. And one of the groups that is now petitioning for this bill is social workers would like to be added to the list of healthcare professionals that can file a red flag complaint. But the reality is these people already have the ability under the law in every state to contact the police and say, I think this person is a risk, and then due process happens. So medical professionals already, if they feel that you're a risk to them, to yourself or to others, they can make a statement and you can be confined, and the healthcare professionals will determine if you are, free to go or not. So, they have means already to make a complaint, but it doesn't mean bypassing due process.
Yeah, Walt out there says that he's a doctor and he doesn't, he's not anti-gun, and not all doctors are anti-gun. My wife is an anti-gun, and she is a doctor. There is actually a group called Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership with Miguel Feria and a bunch of other people, and they are no compromise gun owners, like in the GOA terms of no compromise Second Amendment supporters. So I'm not saying that all doctors are, but in any profession, you're going to have a percentage of people that are anti-gun, and they might abuse that power. Kermit Loves Bacon says 10,000 social workers asked to be added to the red flag bill.
I don't know if I said the number. I said that social workers are petitioning to be added to the gun bill.
Yeah. Kermit Loves Bacon said that. There you go. But yeah, that is insane. I mean, I just don't know. Red flag laws is one of the things that scare me because I'm more of a constitutionalist than just a pure Second Amendment guy. So I want to support all, like, free speech and the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. I don't think we really have to worry too much about the third, but who knows in the future.
Right. Coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of bad stuff happening in Connecticut. One of the things that we are very concerned about, especially since we brought up the coronavirus, is we were supposed to have public testimony on HB 5448 yesterday, and then it got moved to Friday, and then it got moved to Monday, and now it's called off altogether. And there's some real concern about how are people going to exercise their rights under the law to be involved in this process and have public testimony when the Capitol is shut down. And we're definitely concerned that this could be pushed through as an emergency cert or tacked onto another bill later in session as an amendment, and we don't have the ability to be a part of that dialogue.
Yeah, personally, I think anytime that they shut down the state government or state legislatures, no bill should pass until there is public comment on it. Are you aware what GOA did to Chuck Schumer?
Yeah, I did. I've been following it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's what people need to do. We need to turn this on them more than anything else to show them how it really is.
Yeah, I'm always about talking about it. I have no problem calling them out by name. I mean, look at their voting history and some of these very legislators that say that they're champions for gun safety are not backing things that we're doing in the state of Connecticut. For example, after Sandy Hook happened, there was the gun trafficking task force, and the state of Connecticut funded it for 1 year after Sandy Hook. They stopped funding it in 2003, and this task force that is supposed to be working to get guns off the streets, the gun trafficking task force, has not been funded since the very first year after Sandy Hook. And some of the same legislators that will sit there and say that they're all about gun safety are voting against funding the very police officers who are tasked with getting the guns off the streets in the state of Connecticut. So what is going on here?
I know in the state of Virginia, we tried to introduce bills that would make gun crimes, make the punishment for gun crimes more substantial, and the Democrats voted against it. And I think that shows where their actual heart lies.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we saw the same thing last year. So for anybody that doesn't know what we got last year, well, it's coming your way at the federal level. So it's called Ethan's Law here in Connecticut. There was a young man by the name of Ethan Song who very regrettably used a firearm and died as a result of it. But we got a lot of safe storage laws as a result. And then while they were working on safe storage laws, in a separate law, they passed safe storage in your vehicle. So if you leave your vehicle unoccupied in the state of Connecticut, you have to put it in a safe. So a little metal lockbox. But the safe doesn't have to be mounted to anything. It doesn't have to be mounted to your vehicle. They feel that it's just safer if it's in that little box, which is just as portable as the firearm itself. But hey, who's counting? That's okay. It's not okay. I'm just saying. But the Republicans put out an amendment and they said, okay, fair enough. If we're going to move forward with this vehicle safe storage law, let's at least make the penalty harsher on the person who breaks into the car and steals the gun than the gun owner who just left the gun in their locked car. And we couldn't get it passed.
Question. Do you think there is a fundamental hatred for guns and gun owners, and that's why they won't pass like increased penalties for the criminals, but they do pass increased penalty for the gun owners.
I think they know who their voter base is.
So they're playing to the voter base.
So
Yep.
if you're looking at the cities, so the city in Connecticut, we're a tiny state. So, unlike many other states, you can drive through our entire state in an hour and a half. You're all the way through. So our cities, we really have 5 cities that control the entire election. If we had an electoral college here in the state of Connecticut, we would no longer be a blue state.
Yeah. Wow. I wish more states would actually, I wish any state would do like a electoral college for their state, because it seems like these centers of liberal agendas have all the power in all these states, and they're turning a bunch of states blue. If you look at Virginia, for example, 96% of our states are Second Amendment sanctuaries. You only have a couple different areas that are liberal, but they control the whole state.
We have a couple pockets of really affluent suburban communities that do also lean that vote left. But for the most part, especially if you look at the last election, for the vast majority, most towns voted more conservative. But we really don't have a lot of traction in those cities. And it's interesting that you brought up sanctuaries. And this is something that not a lot of folks know about the state of Connecticut. But also in the 90s, the powers that be made the brilliant decision to get rid of sheriffs in the state of Connecticut. So we have absolutely no elected law enforcement. All of our law enforcement is all either state police or local town police. And we get this question all the time in Connecticut, and it's kind of a heartbreaking position to have to take on it. So I'm always asked, well, when are we going to have sanctuary towns or counties? We don't really have much for counties here in the Connecticut because we're so small. They said, well, when are we going to have sanctuaries? And one of the struggles that we've had here is we've been fighting for a preemption for a very, very long time. So we have 169 different towns. And in the state of Connecticut, all 169 different towns are allowed to have their own set of gun laws. So one town can say you can't come on town property. The other one says you can't go in the library. This one says you can. That one says you can't. So we have for a long, long time been fighting to just say, okay, state statute needs to be across the board, because if I live in this zip code, my ability to get a permit shouldn't be any different than my ability to get a permit in this zip code. So we've been fighting for a preemption for a long time. Not having any degree of elected law enforcement means that we have to listen to essentially whatever law enforcement rules come down from the governor. So even if a town were to say we're going to be a sanctuary town, the governor can simply put state police in our town. And we have no authority whatsoever to say no. And that's one of the most heartbreaking things about this sanctuary movement, because as much as my heart believes in it and I would love to do it, it really holds no water for us. We have we really have nothing. We have no power really to enforce it. And that's a really challenging thing. And what we can do though is still continue to fight for preemption, to at least say, all right, at least what we can fight for is that all Connecticut residents get treated the same, regardless of what town they live in.
They just got rid of all the gun preemption in Virginia, or it's going to be signed by the governor. One of the things I think that people need to do is, if you do get coronavirus, you need to go find these lawmakers and give them big hugs.
I don't know. I don't want to hug any of the lawmakers regardless. We'll just elbow.
No. Would you say that Connecticut has a form of self-tyranny in their ruling class?
Oh, it goes so deep here. I not having elected law enforcement really puts us in a very different position than almost every other state. So even our neighbors in New York, they have sheriffs, right? So you have counties where, life can be a little bit easier. Here in Connecticut, we don't have any of the enforcers of gun laws we really don't have the ability to change who's going to be in that position in a few years. So when you talk about tyranny, I'm not talking about the officers themselves, but the mandates that come down to them. Yeah, it's very difficult, and I don't know how we turn that back, aside from members getting more involved, not just on election day. It's too late come election day. We need you 5 months before election day to make sure that the people who are in the legislature get change. We have to change the seats. The people that are in the seats that make up the legislature is the only way to change the state.
Do you think that's possible with the makeup?
100%. Absolutely. So we saw a couple really strong movements in other areas this year. So our governor wanted to put tolls in, and there was this movement called the No Tolls movement, and folks came out in masses, and just for the, really, I think it was kind of a politics in Connecticut had gotten really sleepy. All of a sudden, folks were engaged and energized and fired up and angry. And my gosh, if we could take gun owners and get them off social media and take all of that energy and direct it to our legislators and get them to really engage with them the way that they engage with each other online, we could be making a world of difference. And I think that I think this success that we've seen in other grassroots groups can translate if we each gave 100%.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There was a couple buses that came down to our lobby day in Virginia from Connecticut. Was CCDL involved in that in any way?
So CCDL sent buses down to the Washington D.C. rally. The folks from CCDL that went down to Virginia, they went by themselves. Actually, there are a number of CCDL members, including members of the CCDL executive committee, made the trip down, and they were really, really thrilled to stand with you guys. And then I wasn't able to get down, but I was in touch with Philip several times, throughout the week leading up to and afterwards, and just keeping in touch. So we very much stand with you guys.
Yeah. A question a lot of people ask me is, do the Citizens Defense Leagues and like CCDL, VCDL, AZDL, are they anyway linked, or do they just have the same Citizens Defense League name?
I think you guys in Virginia were the first, to be quite honest with you. I think VCDL was the first one. No, we're not as linked as we should be, and that's definitely something that I want to change. And I think it's something that I think part of our struggle is the anti-movement is so organized at a national level, and we kind of operate in our own little groups and in our own little silos. And if there was a way to get grassroots 2A organizations more in touch with each other, I think we could be learning faster about what's working and what's not working, and really be trading those ideas quickly and efficiently, and learn from one another, and really start to kind of toe the line in the right direction.
One of the things that I think the issue is like Moms Demand Action, Every Count. All these organizations have one head figure who pays for everything. So they're not really grassroots. They're more of AstroTurf. But all these 2A movements around the country, they're actually grassroots. Do you agree with that?
100%. We pass a bucket like at our meetings, and it's hysterical. It's like a clear pretzel bucket, and we like stuck IKEA handles in the sides, and like we've used it for years. We literally, our organization operates by passing a bucket. Membership to the Connecticut Citizens Defense League is free. Membership to the Connecticut Citizens Defense League will always be free. We do plan to offer above and beyond membership options down the road, but it will never change that you can always be a part and always be engaged so long as you want to be. And I think that is really the nature of grassroots, is that we get by on just people opening up their wallets because they love it and they feel for it, and and I think it means more.
It definitely does mean a lot more, and I think that gun owners in the Commonwealth are woken up, and I think they're going to vote in the upcoming elections more than they did in the past elections. I think that's one of the reasons why we lost, is a lot of gun owners stayed home. Do you think what happened in Virginia sent a wake-up call to gun owners in Connecticut?
I think it's on a wake-up call to gun owners everywhere. I think that what happened here when Sandy Hook happened, it was unfathomable, right? I'll never forget. I live in Southbury, which is the town right next to Newtown. I'm about maybe 6.5, not even 7 miles from Sandy Hook Elementary School, and we just all sat there and were like, people don't do this to each other, not to babies, you know? And but I don't think the nation yet really was ready to take it all in. So I think a lot of stuff just got passed as kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And it was kind of hard to push back on it for a lot of people, because I think if you pushed back on it, you were kind of portrayed as heartless, or you didn't care about the children. And that's not the case. We just have different ideas about how to go about it. And I'm not saying that gun owners in Connecticut didn't, but I think that a lot of folks around the country, when it came to the Sandy Hook incident and what kind of triggered a lot of our gun control issues, is because it was in response to a tremendously horrible event. What's happened in Virginia wasn't triggered by something like that. And I think it was kind of a wake-up call to people that said, whoa, 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 this is just a response to non-involvement. And I think that really kind of lit a fire for a lot of folks, as they said, okay, wait a second, this isn't just happening in a place that had a travesty. This is happening in a place that should be still free America.
I got you. Another question I have for you that's not about what's going on in gun laws or anything like that, but how did you become the president of the CCDO?
Like the actual process, the committee, the board votes. But no, it's just.
How, were you involved before?
So I've been around guns since I was a little kid. My dad and I were really, really close, and he was a diehard NRA member. He just through and through, like for life, and was so proud of it. And we would sit at his workbench. I was 8, from the time I was 8 years old, and I would reload his ammo, and that's kind of how we bonded. We'd sit down there and we'd talk, and I'd be reloading rounds, and that was our time together. And then, I think when I was in my 20s, I kind of didn't pay attention to it as much. But then when I became a parent, and I said, wait a second, there is stuff going on out there that we're not paying attention to. And I think I kind of call it like your constitutional awakening, and I think people go through it in gradual stages. So I think, and if Walt's still here, we talk about this pretty often. Your constitutional awakening, your constitutional journey is when things start to like click, and the things that maybe you were a little laxer on in past years, you start to be like, heck no, but that's really been kind of my journey. And then I was a CCDL member and was a CCDL member through the time of SB 1160, which is when our Sandy Hook bill passed. And then I became the Connecticut delegate for the DC project, which is 50 women from 50 states advocating in Washington. And then, I think it's like once that fire's lit, you just go with it.
Yeah. Hold on. Hi. Apparently, a lot of people say that you are in there because you're the best.
Okay. I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not. If I didn't have a team of 16 people with me to share this, I couldn't do this. It's maybe I'm better with public speaking, but gosh, I'm sure not better at a lot of the other things that are jobs that are getting done. I couldn't do this alone. It's not about being a best. It's just simply about working as a team and working towards the same goal. And I would be lost without the committee.
So CCDL has a committee that makes decisions, or how does the committee work?
Yeah. So we have our general membership meeting the second Tuesday of every month, and then the fourth Tuesday of the month, the committee gets together and we make all the big decisions. Like, for example, we just filed this lawsuit. We just filed a lawsuit earlier this week against the state of Connecticut. So one of the most ridiculous laws. So high capacity magazines, so standard capacity magazines. If you had a standard capacity magazine prior to the Sandy Hook gun laws, and you registered it, you can still own it, but if it holds 15, you can still only load 10 into it, which makes absolutely no sense because who's not loading 10 into it is criminals, right? If they have a 15 round mag or a 30 round mag, they're going to put all their rounds in there, but law abiding gun owners won't. So something like that, making a decision to go into a lawsuit, yeah, it's a committee vote, and nobody's voice outweighs the other. We have an executive committee, and then we have an executive board, which is the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary.
Wow. So you guys filed a lawsuit. What stage is it in now?
Just beginning. We literally filed on Tuesday, so we are all the whopping 48 hours in.
Nice. That's a good. Hold on. I keep on forgetting to mute you when I talk. I think more organizations need to file lawsuits and fight back against that. Connecticut has a rich history of gun ownership and gun companies, which it's kind of sad to see Connecticut go the way it has because of its rich history.
Yeah, it's really a shame, and it's we have like Samuel Colt. The building that was his in Hartford is stunning, and if you've never seen the Colt building, it's just got this beautiful gold dome and the rich navy blues, and so much of American firearm history is here, and it's a shame because the companies, to be quite frank, they just feel like they're not welcome here anymore, and even if it's manufacturers like PTR used to be here, and when the laws changed, they left, and continually, even the larger manufacturers, I think it's just very unwelcoming, and that's a shame because, National Shooting Sports Foundation is based here, and we're super proud to have them, and it's just a very unwelcome place to be a gun owner, and I can only imagine how hard it is to be a manufacturer.
You're a mom. Do you get pushback from any of the other moms about you being not only a gun owner, but the president of the state's largest gun organization?
I don't think I talk to those moms anymore. To be honest. I think maybe when my daughter was little, when you were, doing the play dates and the things you're supposed to do, you kind of, try to blend in. And then at the end of the day, when you go through your constitutional awakening and go through that journey, you just kind of say, I don't need that person in my life. And I don't really need that person in my life. And it has nothing to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with spite, but I think the folks that how do I say this? I think when you're deeply committed to the two-way fight, you have very, very little free time, right? So you spend it with the people who are like-minded. And I think that you just don't have time for folks in your life that don't contribute to the work you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I take it you are a Biden supporter?
Feel the burn, Biden, no, not at all.
Did you see the video of him?
A what?
Did you see the video of him?
Which one?
AR-14s?
Unbelievable.
Double gauge shotguns.
And I got to give a lot of credit, and I forget his name. I watched him on Fox and Friends. Gosh, was it today? Yesterday? The dates are blurring. What's that?
I want his hat. I like that hat that he was
wearing.
Yeah,
it's a great hat, but I think for those of us that have kind of done this a while, you finally get to a point where you just don't care about putting your name on something anymore. You just say, this is what I believe in, and I don't mind being outspoken about it. For somebody who hasn't done that before, I give that gentleman a lot of credit to be willing to put out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a testament because they are going to attack him. That they try to tear down everyone. I've been attacked. I'm sure you've been attacked. What advice would you give him about that?
Don't worry about it. At the end of the day, what we're doing because we're leaving a legacy for our kids, and we're preserving the greatest country that's ever been in existence for our children. Who cares?
Great answer. Great answer. I was put on actually a hit list, so that was a little bit different. Yeah, Antifa put me on the hit list, which was kind of weird and bizarre. but I ran into the group that put me on their list at lobby day because they were there, and I went up to try to talk to them, and they were pleasant, but they did not want to talk to me. I was like, I'm right here. You guys put me on your list. I don't know. Maybe it was because that I had like 4 heavily armed people with me that they decided not to talk to. But that's what I'm. But my point is, an armed society is a polite society, and you see Antifa showed up the lobby day, and they did nothing to anyone because everyone was armed. But if you look at what happens out in Portland, Oregon, you can see it's a totally different thing because no one's armed out there, and then people get attacked. Um, I don't know why I brought that up. It was just something I thought of about being attacked, and it is true. How hard is it to get a concealed carry permit in Connecticut?
So technically, we are a shall issue state, but I think there's a lot of argument of whether or not that really is a shall issue or a may issue. It's kind of to be debated. It's really a shame because it depends on where you live. If you are in one town and your police department has it together, you're going to probably get your permit without issue. In other towns where they might say they're backlogged or there are towns out here that are saying, well, we need 3 letters of reference and we want to do an interview with your neighbors and we want to talk to your boss. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. It should be statewide across the state that this is the process we follow. And it's just not like that here. So that's why we're really fighting for preemption.
Would you be for constitutional carry?
Who wouldn't be for constitutional carry? I mean, that's the goal, right? And I really wish that Connecticut gun owners would see the light of how much potential we have if we could change the legislature. The majority of individuals in this state are fairly rational, and I would say we're a purple state. We're a solid purple state. I think people are pretty socially liberal, but conservative fiscally, but they understand the Constitution. And I think that if we did a better job of outreaching to them, we could change. 10 years from now, we could go back to the state we used to be. Constitution state, for goodness sakes. We're the Constitution state, and we have it. A lot of people don't even realize this. The Connecticut Constitution says that we have the right to bear arms in defense of self and state. There's no militia in here. There's no hunting in here. It was last ratified in the 1960s. We're not talking about muskets. We have the right to defend ourselves and the state. I have the right to defend the state. And we've lost all of that in Connecticut. Let's take it back. We can. We just got to flip these seats.
I'm being told that you guys have a new outreach program. What is that?
That's got to be Walt. Outreach program.
No, Kermit loves bacon.
Oh, Kermit loves bacon. Okay. So our outreach program is something that started last year under Scott when he was the president, and it is wildfire excitement. These guys have so much energy and they're so committed to it, and I give them so much credit because they're just fired up. So the way that our outreach program works is we're essentially divided into regional managers. We're a small state, right? So we have regional managers that kind of run their region, and then that goes down to area managers and then to town captains, so that way we can be better escalating information. So if something's going on in your town, for example, one of those 169 towns now wants to pass an ordinance that says you can't have guns on town property. Well, somebody in that town is going to let that regional manager know super quick. And I'll tell you, this was really successful just a month and a half ago or so. It's a town that wanted to ban guns on town property. Literally, we had an individual was in the first selectmen's meeting when this was brought up, texted his father, who was sitting at a gun club with one of the CCDL members, who reached out to me, and I reached out to outreach. The town selectmen meeting wasn't even dismissed yet, and we're already like gearing up for how do we fight this, and blew it out of the water. Hundreds of Pro 2A individuals showed up to, I think, 3 antis showed up, something like that. So it just goes to show that if people are willing to step up and get involved, we can take it back.
Kermit Love Bacon is also saying it costs $300 to $500 to get a permit in Connecticut. Is that right?
But yeah, about 300. It's gonna be about $300.
That is insane.
Yeah, they wanted to make it more. We beat that bill. And I think that's really important for folks to kind of remember. Whatever state you're in, it is devastating when an anti-gun bill passes. But whatever your state level group is doing, I guarantee you there are bad bills out there that they are defeating. The really egregious ones are the ones that have a lot of backing and a lot of money behind them, and a lot of the anti-groups, whether it's Moms Demand Action or we have quite a few here in the state of Connecticut. Yeah, they're going to get through those really big bills, but there's a lot of bills along the way that your state level groups are probably nipping in the bud that people don't talk about anymore. So we did beat a huge permit increase bill a couple of years ago, and I'm happy that it's not worse. I'm not happy that it is what it is, and hopefully we can take that back too at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane that it would cost you that much to exercise a constitutional right that you should have, and it should be free. There shouldn't be a permit. It should be, hey, it's a constitutional right you can carry and whatnot. That's wow. In Virginia, if somebody wants to know how much it costs in Virginia, it depends on the county. You're like probably average $35 to $50, maybe. It's a lot
That's
different.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cheapest is like 15, which is like the absolute minimum. But yeah, it usually is not more than $50 is like extreme level, like Fairfax County level. And they also have to issue it within 45 days, or you automatically have it.
Wow, that's pretty fantastic. So ours are supposed to be issued within 8 weeks. Doesn't always happen. Depends on what zip code you live in.
Yeah, when I renewed mine, I sent everything in by mail on Monday. You can do it by mail too. And I had it back by Thursday.
No way. That's unheard. That's not the process here. It doesn't happen like that here at all. It all gets done in person. You got to start at your local police department, and then you go to your first selectman's office, and then you have to go to the state. So you're making essentially 3 visits just to get your permit squared away. So you get a temporary permit that's issued in town. So it starts at your police department. They're going to fingerprint you. That's your first trip down. Then when your temporary permit comes in, that's at your first selectman's office. That's your second trip. And then you make a trip over to the ESPP, so our state.
Do you think they make it that way to discourage people from doing it?
Well, I think they know it's not making it easier, so I don't think that's lost on them at all. I think there's a number of factors. I think Connecticut doesn't know how to manage their finances. I think that's a huge part of it. Mismanagement in this state runs rampant, and the permit process is no exception to that. But I think the fact that they tried to make the permit cost even more is indicative that yes, it's intentional, and we're a targeted group.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why they're targeting ammo. Joe Biden doesn't think anyone should have 100 rounds of ammo, and I think by paying a 35% tax on ammo, I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that comes out of that man's mouth is just, I don't even know where he gets it from. Although, I mean, the AR-14 does exist, right? I think I was looking at some stuff after he said it, and there was at one point in time at least blueprints of an AR-14. There was a conceptualization of it. I don't know that if it was ever manufactured, but there was an AR-14. But, I mean, this is the guy that says go outside and shoot your shotgun warning shots. He's no idea what he's talking about. I mean, literally advocates for the most unsafe things that you can do for a firearm, and yet he's the one that says that he's responsible for limiting. Did he say he limited mag capacity federally? What do you remember that clip where he said like I'm the guy that got rid of however number of clips? But yeah, I mean, he has no idea what he's talking about, so you can't really. The problem is the other side eats it up. They just don't know what they don't know. They're ignorant to how firearms work. They're ignorant to what firearms do and don't do. So yeah, they buy it.
What's the biggest challenge facing the CCDL?
It's our legislature. We have the minority party. We're a nonpartisan organization, so I should preface it by that we will endorse anybody of any party if they have unwavering commitment to the Second Amendment. So I don't care if you're a Democrat or Green Party or Libertarian or whatever it is. If you believe and support the Second Amendment, we want to work with you. That being said, it's pretty obvious which legislative group we tend to work with more, right? If that makes sense. More individuals in one party tend to have similar views on firearms than the other. So that is by far our biggest struggle, is the makeup of the legislature. But going back to what I said earlier, it's fixable. It's fixable if the people of the state of Connecticut are willing to give time. And that's the challenge, that if we could get them involved in the campaigns and get pro-2A people elected, we could take back our legislature, and it's not out of our grasp. We had a tied Senate just a couple of years ago, so it's definitely possible.
Walt saying I have a shotgun is like saying I'm not a racist. I have black friends, and I never thought of it that way. But Walt, you are dead on.
It's like my family was hunters. I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm like, what does the Second Amendment have to do with hunting? No one ever said that.
Yeah, I would like to say, well, I don't hunt and I don't come from a family of hunters, but I'm pretty sure that I'm more pro Second Amendment friendly than you are, Joe.
So funny. Ridiculous. They have no idea. And they always say that. The legislators always say that. I believe in the Second Amendment. I support hunters. My family was this, they're duck hunters, whatever. Come to your state level organizations like CCDL or VCDL or any other state level groups or GOA. Find out the voting history of these legislators, and that's what will tell you if they're actually with us or against us. They will. I don't know. I think Beto O'Rourke himself would say, I support the Second Amendment. We know he doesn't, right? So look at their voting history.
Yeah, hold on. Wait. There is a website called Ballottopia. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it or not, but Ballottopia, I'm going to bring it up here. So just give me 1 second. But what Ballottopia does is it allows people to look up the voting record of any person in any legislature in the United States, even like local council members.
Yeah, that's awesome. And people should be looking at that. And I think that's really where, when you don't know how to challenge a legislator, if you go to a town hall or coffee meet and greet or something like that, and you ask the question, do you support the Second Amendment? They're going to yes you every time. But gun owners really need to look at their voting history and ask them, why would you support this bill? If you say you're against gun violence, why did you support this bill? And make sure they answer to you.
Yeah, one of the things I like to call them butt heads, because it's like, I support the Second Amendment, but it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Tim Anderson in Virginia, who's a lawyer, who says he's a pro Second Amendment lawyer. I told him face to face that I don't believe he's pro Second Amendment because he's for universal background checks. He said we should compromise and agree to 30-day waiting periods, and things like that. So I don't see that as being pro Second Amendment, whether you say you are or not. But that's just the way I view it.
I mean, yeah, anybody it shall not be infringed. Not it. It's okay to infringe it a little bit. No, it shall not be infringed. It's not. Well, we'll infringe it for 30 days. That's not how that works.
Yeah. James out there is saying the key is to be active at the very local level, which I definitely agree with. What I tell people is donate to a state organization, one state organization, and one national organization. And if you don't have money to donate to both, donate to that state organization. And I'm a director for GOA, which is a national organization, but I do think that more work gets done on the state level by state organizations than by national organizations. The national organizations are really, really good at getting stuff done on the federal level, but on the local level, you definitely have to find a state organization.
Yeah, and I think if you look at local elections, it just shows how important that is. So we have elections where somebody might win by 22 votes. That's where we have the power to be changing seats. So if you've got your state level house and you're looking at it in small districts and somebody's winning by less than 100 votes, that's where your state level organization could be taking back seats. And it all adds up. If you take back 6 seats this year and you take back 6 seats next year, all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, we're almost tied. Wait a second, like we're almost there. We actually might be able to start to not only beat bad bills, but let's pass some good bills. And we've got a couple really great legislators in the state of Connecticut that work tirelessly to try to put good pro-2A bills out there. We've got a couple right now. I mentioned funding the gun trafficking task force. We've also got a bill right now proposed by a legislator by the name of Craig Fishbein, who has proposed that in a house of worship, you do not have the duty to retreat. We need that bill. Every house of worship in America should not have the duty to retreat if you're in a position. So that bill is up there. And we've got another one in the state of Connecticut. This is the most bizarre thing ever. You can have a gun, but you cannot carry a taser or a stun gun. So even though those are non-lethal items, you will have you'll be in a world of hurt if you get caught with a taser or a stun gun in the state of Connecticut. They're completely prohibited to carry. You can only have it in your home. So Representative by the name of Doug Dubitsky has put forward a bill to take electronic devices off the list of prohibited weapons. And, we've had bills in the legislature that have failed, something that's as simple as the ability to carry in state forests. And we can't get those bills through. So for people that talk about 2A rights, take some of them back. And the only way you're going to do that is getting those guys that understand the cause into those seats. That's the only way you take the stuff back. You can't just be focused on fighting bad bills. It's time to start gaining some ground too.
All right. I'm going to give you the last words here. Anything you want to plug or any message you want to get out to the people before we end this? So we've been on for about an hour now, and I'm very, very tired. So anything that you want to get out, and I'm sorry about canceling last week. I had some stuff going on with my mom. My mom had a stroke, so I was dealing with that. But anything you want to get out before we wrap everything up?
I want to say a huge thank you to the Second Amendment Foundation, who are our partners in the lawsuit that we filed earlier this week. So huge thank you to Alan Gottlieb and his team out there. Huge thank you to the committee and CCDL and all of our members. We have 36,000 members. Thank you guys for being involved, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do together. And thanks to the listeners who are here, because the more that you guys pay attention to what's going on, you kind of get through that constitutional awakening, and we all get there in our own.
Yeah, I want to throw out a big thank you to Kermit Loves Bacon. He is the guy who's been saying that I need to have you on and hooked me up with you and said, hey, you got to have her on. So I want to throw out a huge thank you to him as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Yep. So I hope everyone out there can go support CCDL, throw them a little bit of money. Instead of donating to me tonight, donate to CCDL. Help them out. Holly, so people are saying that you rock, and you really do rock. Thank you for coming on so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Yeah, I will definitely have you back on.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. Next week, people, I don't know how many shows I'm going to be able to do. If you don't know, my wife works in the medical field for PHS, and so she's heavily involved in this corona stuff. So I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm going to at least do one show. I'm going to try to have multiple shows, but I can't promise anything. But if you are out there, everyone be safe. And since I don't know if I'm going to be on next week, I want to play a little something for you guys just because I've never done it before. And I believe that I should have done this a long time ago. I am going to play the Star Spangled Banner. If I can get it right. All right, here we go.
So proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, His bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly